Have you been wishing that there was a better way to collaborate while you are in a Zoom meeting without necessarily having to leave the meeting to work in a third-party app, whether that's in a browser or a separate app, and you are now no longer part of the Zoom meeting? Well, I know that has been a frustration of mine, and I have voiced this concern before when it comes to using third-party apps during your Zoom meetings, but now there is a feature in Zoom called Zoom Apps that tries to alleviate that. So that is what we are going to talk about today, is using this Zoom Apps feature. So what do you need to know? What is it? How does it work? And what are some of the pros and cons? Because I've done a little bit of testing and I have some opinions on who this will work for and maybe who it won't work for. If you are new and you have not met me before, my name is Kat and I help people to create more professional and engaging online presentations. And if you are facilitating a group, you might want to be using something like these Zoom apps. So let's get into what this actually is, because the Zoom apps really allow you to incorporate third-party apps directly in your Zoom meeting so that you do not have to leave. So what are some of these apps? Well, if you go to the Zoom apps sort of marketplace, they have a bunch of different apps. So you can see if we scroll down this page that there's a combination of productivity collaboration tools. So the demonstration I'm going to show today is with Miro, which is virtual whiteboard, which I have talked about before. But you also have some of the fun ones like Ellen DeGeneres' Heads Up game. So there are other apps that are a little bit more on the playful side, and then some that are more on the productivity side. Other ones where you use chat and games. So there's some ones about virtual backgrounds. Honestly, I'm not really sure how that works. I have not tried that out. I don't really understand how you collaborate on a virtual background together. So there are some questions that I still have. As of recording this today, it has not been out very long, and I'm sure that more and more will be added to the marketplace. And you can search by category. So if there's something particular that you are looking for, you can use this marketplace to search for them, because essentially you will have to add these to your Zoom meeting. So if we actually go to my Zoom meeting, if I just hide that, so I've got me and me. This is, I think, the safest way to test this. So I have two different accounts going. This is my host account. And on my MacBook, so I also have me as a guest. So I'll be switching between what you see as a host and what you see as a guest. So when it comes to launching this app, you actually have to, first of all, have the newest version installed. You'll know you have the new version when you look at the bottom and you see that this apps down here at the bottom right, that will show up. That's how you know you have the newest version of the Zoom meeting client. So you need to make sure that you have that. And if anyone who's here live, let me know if you have tried this before, because I'd love to know who here has actually tried this. So if we click on this Zoom app, it will actually open this little apps area. So I have actually only installed to date the Miro app, which is that collaboration tool. And that's the one I'm going to show you today. So this is one of the first things that I want to talk about. The fact that you need to install this app in advance, and in order to install the app, you have to have permission to be able to do that. So I own my account, so I was able to sign into Zoom and add it, because you will be prompted to sign in to make sure that it's okay to add this app to this account. Now, what will also happen is every participant that you want to invite to use this with you, they not only have to have the newest Zoom client, but they also have to install the app in order to all use it together. I found out the hard way that if you invite someone during a meeting that does not have it, they will be prompted in the meeting to then sign into Zoom. And so it's a little bit messy. So one of the first things I want you to know is not only that you need to install it, anyone who's going to use it with you also needs to install it. And I recommend they do this in advance, because you're going to be spending quite a bit of time trying to troubleshoot getting people to actually be adding this during the call. Now, I did decide to do this in advance for both accounts so that I don't have to do this in front of you, but I want you to know that that is the type of thing that you will probably want to think about before you actually run a meeting using the Zoom apps. Get everyone to have the permission. The other thing before I get into the demo that I want to share is if you are not the owner of your account, you have to, if there's another administrator, so maybe if you're on a business account, an enterprise account, or an educational account, your administrator has to allow you permission to add these apps. And I found out the hard way. I was facilitating a session last week and I thought, oh, I'm going to test this out with a group. So it was an Intact team that I was running a session. I put together the Miro board in advance and then found out because they are not owners of their account, their administrator had not enabled it. So we could not use it. We were able to still use the board. We just had to leave the meeting to use it. So that's something I definitely want you to know. I'm just taking a look to see if anyone live here has tried it yet. So far, oh, werewolf. I haven't heard of that one. All right. So if we go back, we have the apps. And so when it's ready, when you've got it installed, you can then click to open the app. So I'm in my actual Zoom meeting and I've now opened this Miro app and you'll be able to pick from a choice of boards. So I have an actual account. Now I have a free Miro account. I don't have a paid one. And I was able to set up a demo board for this purpose. So I kind of put together a little pros and cons, and you can navigate it similarly to how you would in the browser. So it looks very, very much like what you would use if you were on a browser, except here you're still in the meeting, but you can see the actual format. And yes, I realize I'm covering part of it, but if we, let's make, can we make this disappear? Nah, we won't worry about this. So everyone will be on the side. And then you've got your window, but you have the option to collapse it and then expand it if you want to be able to quickly. So I can show this again, top right corner. If I click collapse, then I'll go back to my gallery view. So if there's, let's say there are 6 of us together in a group, I can do that if I really want to focus on the group, and then I can click expand again. Now, if we go over to my laptop where I'm a guest, I can't see anything. And that's because as the host, I haven't actually shared this yet. I haven't invited anyone to use the app yet. So if we go back to my host account, you can see up in the top, there's a little send. And so I am going to click send, and I have the option, it might be a little bit small for you to see, it says send to all or select participants. Now, I don't know why you would only want some people to get it if you're going to work together on something, but I'm going to click send to all. And then this will send an invite, and it sends it through the chat. So if we switch now to my participant view, you will see on the top right corner that I do have an invitation, and it says Cat Mulvihill is inviting you to use a Zoom app. So I can ignore it or I could view it. You'll also see, different mouse, that if I go down here, there's a chat, and in the chat, you can actually see that I've been invited. You can also see that I practiced this before I went live today. So you can see it in the chat, and you can see it up here. It will pop in. So if I say yes or view, now as the participant, my window looks the same. So it is opening this app that is being shared. And you can see right now that there are 2 different name tags dancing on the board. And so if you look at the top as the participant, so as I move around, I'll show you both versions. So on this board here, I am the guest. So what I did with this board is when you first launch it, it will say which board you want to pick and can anyone with access edit it, which I said yes, because anyone I invite in this meeting, I want them to be able to access the board without having to sign into Miro. And that to me is an advantage, because previously when I would use Miro, everyone had to create a guest account. And I know not everyone wants to create a free account. We have so many different accounts online. And so asking a person to create it, the advantage of this is you can set it so that everyone can edit. And so that means everyone in the meeting can just start working on this board. Now they won't be signed in, so it will look like this where you are a guest. And then if I move on my host account, you can actually see my little cat toggle moving around. And when you have more people, you'll see all of those moving around together. So that's something you want to be cautious of, is how many people are on the board at one time, because it can start to feel a little bit overwhelming when you have everybody. If we switch to my perspective, so if we go back to the host account, so we've got, my little cursor here, you don't see my name because this is my account, but you do see the guest. So if I start to move around the board on my MacBook, then you can actually see that movement. So we have the two cats are on the board at the same time. And so that's what it looks like if we toggle between this one as the host account, and then we have this as the participant account. And you can kind of see some of the controls are different. So when I'm on the guest account or as a participant, I see guest editing. However, if I am on my host account, you will see that I have the option to share. You'll see that I have the option to go up here and kind of toggle different things and change the board because this is my board. I am the owner. So that is what the actual interface looks like. And as a participant, so if I'm on the participant board, I can also decide to collapse this. So if I click collapse, I can also choose to go between. So you're not forced as the participant to only be in that view. You can expand. The other thing you can do if you click on the more options is you will see that you can actually pop it out. So maybe if you have dual monitors, you could pop out the board so you could see the gallery view a little bit better and then have the board. So you can do that as a participant. And then also if we go back to my screen, you can see that I also have the same option. I can pop this out or have this in together. So that's another option that you might want to have if you've got more room. However, one of the benefits to this is the fact that you are not having to leave the app. So if you are working with people who just have one, they have one monitor, one laptop, and they want to be able to see the participants and see reactions, but also see the board you're collaborating on, that's one of the big things that is a drawing factor for using this, is that you can still have that interaction through the video. And even though mine are turned off right now, I think that's a really important element. And one of the reasons I did not love using third-party apps with Zoom before, if someone starts working in a browser, they can be more easily distracted. They can start to say, oh, I have this other tab open. I'm going to see what my email says. You can be more easily distracted away from the purpose and why you left the Zoom meeting, but also you start to miss out on some of the interactions that happen during the Zoom meeting. So if you have someone making an expression, or if they put up their hand for a question, but you can't see anyone because you have left and you're working in a browser, this enables you to see all of that. So I think that's definitely a distinct advantage. I'm just going to check and see if there are any comments or questions. So I see here, yes, this is a great point. So, I clicked on the wrong comment. Hold on one moment here. Okay, this is a really important point. So if you are on a work account, there are a lot of organizations, and I know in my past job, you need permission to download certain apps. So that is going to be a distinct disadvantage for certain work companies. Also, with that example, when I was working with a team last Friday trying to facilitate this whiteboard session, none of them had the ability to change their account settings because they were all on an educational account. And so that's the type of thing you need to keep in mind. You do not expect someone can automatically use this, which when I get into who I think this is best for, that is one of the factors, but I definitely think that is a good point. And yeah, I don't believe this for 1 minute. Never distracted during a Zoom meeting. What do you mean? I just started checking my email and doing other things. So this is a really great way to keep everyone in there. And I will say that if you plan this properly, you will be able to keep people more engaged. So if you are a host and you're using a collaborative tool and you're doing some work together, if you have kind of mapped this out in advance, and this is where that facilitation mindset comes into play, what are my goals? What are my objectives? What are we trying to accomplish together? And you have really clear instructions, people should be staying engaged throughout. And so it is easier to stay engaged when you are working on something together and you're actually building something. So that's definitely something that I personally believe, but you do need to think about it in advance and you do need to have that structure. And let's see, we have Jeff asked a question. Can other Zoom meeting participants view what's going on without having the app? That's a great question. And I don't know. I haven't. So when I've tested it, the group that I tested it with, they didn't have access. So we just left the room and went to the Miro board And I will say, I don't know if I mentioned this yet, when they went to the Miro board, they did have to sign in. So if we had stayed in the app, they would have been able to contribute as guests without having to create an account. But as soon as we had to leave the Zoom app, that permission no longer held. And so because I don't have a paid account, if you have a paid Miro account, I believe that you can. So this was a nice advantage for me when I was able to successfully test this with someone in Zoom who was able to install it, and we tested the Miro app together. They could contribute as a guest, but when I had to leave the board or leave Zoom and work on the board directly in the browser, that's when everyone had to create a free account, which is a bit of a bummer because I didn't want to throw that on them, but they would have also had to install the app. So either way, in order to use this, you are asking people to take an extra step. And let's see. I'm sorry, Jeff, I don't know the answer, but you could test it. As of today, it has not been out very long, and I haven't had a ton of opportunity to test it. And hi, Victor, nice to see you. And yes, I'm familiar with the different names. So David, no, it has a battery that I took out. So that clock is purposely frozen, and I could turn it back on, but I've decided that I just don't want to. And it's a fun conversation piece. And anyone who knows the answer of why I unplugged the battery, feel free in the chat to share with David why my clock is frozen the way it is. All right, so let's get back to this. I want to go into, and let's actually look at using the Miro app, because maybe you haven't actually seen this in action. So what would happen, let's say I want to add a sticky note. We're doing pros and cons of the Zoom apps. I can add a little sticky note here, and I can type a pro. I've got two keyboards going today. So a pro would be don't have to leave the Zoom meeting. All right, so that's one of the pros. So I can kind of move that sticky note. And then here, let's have my guest add a con. So if we put a sticky note here and we say need to install the app. Need to install the app. So that's a con. So you can see the guest drafter has just added this. So you can see though that one of the benefits to this virtual whiteboard is that my participant is able to collaborate and add things to the board. And so this is the type of thing that is great for working together in a group. So I like that. And if my participant was on camera, I'd be able to see their expression. I'd be able to, use the chat together and not have somebody in the other board. So that's one of the other ones. Let's say, so let's actually add, I'm going to add the pro over here. Working with myself is, nice. Oh, wrong keyboard. Okay, a nice way to work together and collaborate. So that's another pro. And another con, I did prep in advance. I made some lists. And so now I'm going to go back to do the little dance. And you do have permission, meaning that's two different things. I think those are two different cons. The fact that you need to have permission to install it, meaning if you don't own your Zoom account, you might not actually be able to do this. Maybe you're in a work environment where your computer is set so that you cannot download new programs without having an administrator or someone from IT helping you to download that. So that is another one. Not just the fact that you need to install it, but also you need to have permission to install it. And so I see Tommy has a TikTok. Yes, I used to use the Yeti, which is a condenser microphone, which was so sensitive, it would pick up the ticking of my clock. Full disclosure though, I found the clock kind of annoying also. So when I was quiet, just working, the clock would be ticking loudly, and that was not cool either. Louise, oh, this is funny. Kat's evil twin is bringing it with the negativity. I didn't actually plan it that way, but it's true. Okay, the other one that I am going to, another negative, Kat's evil twin has another point that she wants to make, which is that group sizes matter for a well-run session. So this is more, Okay, so this is a factor that is less about the Zoom apps. However, it is a consideration because I think some people will see that there's a new tool, they'll get really excited, and they'll just think that it's appropriate for everyone. But I definitely think you want to consider this in advance, meaning if you have too many people working on this board, it can be overwhelming. And I have learned that through experience. So one of the things you could do, you can check out the video where I talk about third-party collaboration tools. What are some of the things that you should consider? But I would say you could have a few different boards. So let's say you do have a larger group. Maybe you have 16 or 20 people, have maybe 4 different frames. So if I go to this workspace here and I zoom out, I can actually add another frame. So maybe I just say I want another custom frame, and you could ask people to be working on different activities at the same time and say, okay, I want all of you to be working on frame 1. I want all of you in group 2 to be working on frame 2, which brings up another question, which is, can you use this in breakout rooms? And the answer is right now, no. So when I was on the webinar from Zoom where they were explaining and announcing how the Zoom apps work, a lot of people wanted to know, this is great, can we do it in a breakout room? And they said at this time, as of today's recording, not possible. But they understand how much of a draw that would be to have these tools available in breakout rooms. So for now, that is not an option. So I'm just gonna check down on some of the comments here. So okay, I'm seeing more dragons saying, making the link between Zoom users and Miro users is not as automatic as I would like. It seems to confuse my users and can't be done en masse as an administrator. So yeah, there's a lot of elements that you want to consider when you're incorporating these tools. And remember, Miro is just one example. It's the one that I personally have used as a facilitator. There are a lot of advantages to using this to have a group virtually actually contribute and work together. However, there are a lot of other apps. Another one that I mentioned in my collaboration video that I think has a lot of benefits, but is a little bit more of a premium product is Mural. So Mural, Mural. So that's another one that is available in the app marketplace, and it's one that I may be testing out. But yeah, the actual app itself, that's one of the considerations that you want to make for sure. And Tommy points out another con is mental health issues, meeting and arguing with yourself. So yes, having a meeting of 2 versions of myself with 2 computers and figuring all that stuff out is definitely something that you want to consider as well. So let's zoom back into this. Now, the other thing you can do is you have an option to follow a person. So if I actually click on this, I have an option to follow my guest drafter. So when I click on this name, you can't see this. Hold please. So I went to the top, so you can actually click on a name. So if I've clicked on guest drafter, so when I click on this, you will see now there's a blue box around this and it says following guest drafter. And so over here, if I say, you know what, I'm going to go check out this other, the frame, I'm going to refresh this. I'm just refreshing the app as a participant. Let's go down to my computer. So right now the other frame was not visible. So yeah, here. So now I am, as a participant, moving over to the other frame. And so you can see if you go back to my host, this is hard, that it's moving. So I'll actually do this here. So as a participant, if I am moving this on my computer, the host, which is on right now, you're seeing my host one, is actually following me. Does that make any sense? This is really hard to demonstrate with yourself, but this is one of the things you want to keep in mind. Okay, so I'm actually going to look at this question. So Murdo is asking, would you contrast this with Zoom Whiteboard? What are the advantages? So I would say, yes, some of these collaborative tools like Miro and Mural, if you are wanting to do a virtual whiteboard, I much prefer being able to go in advance, set up these different boards, set up some of the instructions. So if we take a look, I'm going to reset this and then I'll come back to it. So an example is that you can go in advance and set up the different frames. You can actually name this. So let's say I want this frame to be called, you actually have to get rid of the stuff here. So when I ran the group session, we had 4 different frames. And so I could call this, you know, activity 1, activity 2, activity 3. I could have the name of the activity up here. Then here I can have different titles. You can have the sticky notes. You can draw things and connect them. So maybe I want to connect this sticky note. I want to have a line here and connect these. So you can do different things with these tools that you can't do with the Zoom whiteboard. And you can also keep this. So when it comes to being able to go back, so let's say that you hosted a session and you wanted to do a debrief of the session. So something I ran with another group was having, you know, a start, stop, change. We kind of had, what are the things we want to do differently this time? So everyone was able to go into the board and add, okay, what do we start? What do we stop? What do we change? What are we going to improve? And so we were all able to go and add and contribute that. And we actually were able to keep that board so we can go back to it. And we have gone back to that and said, okay, when we looked at how this event went that time, now let's look at our post-mortem. How did everything go? We can go back and refer to that board for planning purposes. So I like the ability to return back, which brings up another thing that I wanted to mention. And this is actually another con. So let's add, actually, I'm going to add it just from my host account for simplicity. So let's add another con, which is that the Zoom app stays open when the call ends. So that is not great to me. So when I was testing this, I noticed that when I closed the meeting, that it was still there. So when I exited the meeting, just a pop-up window showed up. And also for the participant, it can just still stay there. So you need to rely on every participant to actually close the window. And I can show you an example of what that means. So if anyone wants to see this, I can show you any other parts of this before I actually show you what it looks like when I close this. But that is one of the things that I do not like about it. And I'm just going to check and see if there's anything else that I haven't mentioned. No, I think that's, so let's say that I actually want to end this meeting. So I'm going to collapse this and I'm going to end the meeting for all. Now I'm going to head over to here and I close that meeting, but look what's stayed up. So as a participant, my meeting ends, but the board is still here. So you could be done your meeting. You could have all kind of finished stuff. And then, oh, that looks wonky. Let's do like a little refresh here. But the board stays open. And so to me, that's a little bit strange. And now we can actually see some of the changes that were made, adding, it highlights the changes. You could hide that. Maybe I don't want to see the changes. But now it's hanging around. So let's say your whole group has finished the exercise. Maybe you were doing a post-mortem and talking about how an event went. And then you all leave and someone else just decides, you know, I'm going to add some more things, or I'm going to add a bunch of arrows, or I'm going to change things around. And you won't know unless you go back in there, or you can specifically just ask everybody to please close the window when it's done. So maybe telling them, hey, this is going to stay open. I would ask you to close it. So you can actually say here, close app. So I can actually close that out. But I think that that is a very strange decision not to have the app close when the meeting is done. And maybe there are advantages that I am not thinking about. But as far as if you're hosting a meeting and all of your participants can keep on collaborating, and I mean, I suppose if you just shared a browser, that would also be the case, but I think it's more natural that everybody would close it. I don't know, maybe not. That's just my thoughts. So, okay, I see a few people. Let me just double check here. Thank you very much. I appreciate that feedback that you're learning from my videos. I feel like today feels a little bit like a hot mess because of the switching back and forth, but I think I was able to show the demonstration of how this works. And so, okay. Oh, thank you. You can disable editing when the meeting is over as the board meeting. Well, so here's my question though. Because the Zoom app has the option when you open that board to say allow guest editing so they don't have to sign in. then I guess, yeah, if you go to your main board and then you would disable editing and you would have to stop the editing. It would just be nice if that was just, if it just closed for everyone, in my personal opinion. Yeah. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. Okay, so and Louise is saying, I can see that as a pro in some cases. People can continue to collaborate outside of the Zoom meeting. And yeah, so sometimes this is actually a good point around, often we'll come up with ideas after the meeting has ended, or maybe someone who just needs a little bit more time to process things will then be able to contribute. So there could be the advantage of having that still open. I think maybe you would just want to set your terms. So knowing as a host that it's going to stay open, and then expressing very clearly to the team, if you have anything else additional to add, please do that within the next, say, 4 to 6 hours. And then we'll kind of come back and I'm going to turn off the editing. So maybe you can actually give people a window. So if they wanted to contribute, I think, so this is, let me actually get to the point that I was going to make, is who should use this? Because this is not necessarily going to be great for every team or group. But actually the who should use this, I think it should be intact teams. This is who I think it would be best for teams who are already using the app. So if you go to the marketplace and you realize that your app is on there. So another example is the app Asana, which is a project and kind of task management app. If you're, let's say you're on a team and you all use Asana and you're planning a project, to be able to open that in Zoom and work on it together, you all already have accounts, so you're not creating an account for the first time. If you are on that team, likely your administrator would allow access to your Zoom app to be able to have an app you already use as a team that's enabled. So that would be another thing. So there's that advanced thought that we all use this as a team. We collaborate with this. Now we can do this in a live setting if it's appropriate. Obviously, some of these tools are designed to be asynchronous. However, there are advantages to doing this work together. It can save some time. You can have quick discussions. You don't have to wait to go back and forth on things. So that's who I think it's best for when it's more of the productivity and work tools, is a team that's familiar with the software that you're using. Already our users have accounts, and then you also don't necessarily have to worry about the guest editing, not knowing who's actually contributing what. So that's where I would do this. Now, an example is that I have a small team that I do some work with, and we all are comfortable using Miro. We all have Miro accounts. And when we're trying to brainstorm together, I think it'd be great, a small group of us getting on a Zoom call together and working on a project and being able to do that in Zoom. We can still see each other. We have that interaction, and we can do the work right in the app. What I wouldn't use it for is what I did last week, where I was invited to facilitate for a team who did not have access to it, had never really used it before, and then I was basically asking them to install it, and then they couldn't install it. They didn't have permission, and we basically just wasted time. So that's where I would not use it. To be truthful though, I'm still glad that I used a Miro board for that session, because the value they got out of answering some of those questions, contributing the sticky notes to the board, was really powerful. And we could take what everyone contributed and then reflect on it. So I'm still a fan of using collaborative tools. But as far as the Zoom apps, that's one of the things to consider. Now, on the fun side of things, let's say you want to play the heads up game or the quiz game. If you have a group of friends or family who are getting together on Zoom and you want to meet and do something fun together, then that's also an area where I think it would be a great use, where everyone agrees in advance that they're going to have the newest feature and that they are also all going to download it in advance so they can play a quiz game together, or play heads up, or do something fun together. Now, I should say, at the webinar, Zoom said that right now it is just working for the Zoom meeting client on your computer. And that I do not believe, so that's another con at this point in time, is if you, let's say you want to join one of those calls with your friends or family and you're just using a mobile device, it's not really set up that way. So there are some limitations. Zoom is aware of those limitations, and I'm sure that as they keep going with this, there are going to be changes. And what I shared today is not necessarily going to be what happens in the future. Okay. Can you repeat the whole thing? Yeah, so no, because today was a doozy. So going back and forth. Okay, but what I want to really emphasize, as I do think that this is a great new feature that is applicable in some situations. So as long as you understand the limitations, you understand who it works best for, and in my opinion, it is intact teams who are kind of already using those tools, who want to collaborate and work together. I do not think it is great for doing a guest presentation or working with a group where you're suddenly asking everyone to install something. I think that is a barrier to getting things done. You can do a lot without having to ask that of teams. So that's really where my head goes. I'd love to hear for anyone who's watching this replay, letting me know in the comments, what are some pros, cons? What are some ways that you would love to see these apps used? But I think there's a lot of potential to being able to actively work together in a virtual environment where you can actually interact, you can see each other's expressions, and you're not leaving and taking that risk of getting distracting. And as a host, it will help you to create a more professional and engaging online presentation.